The vapor fire furnace that you now own was designed to burn seasoned firewood, clean, efficient, safe, and simple. It's very owner friendly and actually makes wood burning fun. By no means is it a typical stove such as a barrel stove, which is hard to control and billows out all kinds of smoke into the atmosphere. Other furnaces can pollute the world in which we live and are a safety hazard because of the creosote that they don't burn that many times leads to chimney fires and homes burning down when it ignites. Understand this about burning wood for heat. You not only have to burn the wood fibers, the cellulose, but you must also burn the gases in the wood. If you don't, you have an inefficient furnace that emits a lot of smoke. Smoke is pollution. Smoke is wasted fuel. The gases can amount to as much as 2/3 of the heat energy in each piece of wood. You don't want to waste this energy because then you have to burn more wood to obtain the same amount of heat. For example, a smokeless vapor fire furnace may burn 3 to 5 cords of wood per winter to heat a home, whereas a furnace that emits a lot of smoke may burn 6 to 10 cords per winter to heat the same home. It makes that much of a difference. Also, and even more importantly, if you have smoke, you also have creosote. Creosote is a highly flammable, sticky substance that can collect in your pipes and chimney, and if it ignites, will produce extremely high temperatures that can cause chimney and house fires. To avoid this dangerous situation, the only answer is to burn the smoke that contains the creosote. No smoke means no creosote, and that means safety for you. The vapor fire furnace will burn the wood so complete that the smoke will actually disappear. Each and every burn can be as much as 95 to 98% smokeless, and that in turn gets rid of the dangerous creosote. It also helps eliminate air pollution. That's the reason that you own a vapor fire furnace, and it's a very good reason. The old saying that where there's smoke there's a fire isn't true with a vapor fire. This process of burning wood and its gases to eliminate smoke is called wood gasification. You have a wood gasification furnace. It automatically gasifies and burns the wood from the front end of the logs to the back end. All you need to do is provide the seasoned firewood for fuel and load and reload the furnace correctly. Just follow the directions. It's that simple. You'll have real peace of mind as you heat your home using the vapor fire furnace because you'll know that if the smoke is burning, so is the dangerous creosote. You'll be able to load up and relax, not load up and worry. When you burn wood, it must be seasoned firewood. Keep in mind that water does not burn. Unseasoned wood can actually have more water content in it than it has wood material, weight-wise. How then can you expect to burn it if it's that wet? Also, the water in unseasoned wood will keep putting out the fire in your furnace once you start to burn it. Ask yourself these two simple questions. Number one, when you have a campfire and you want to leave, what do you put on the fire to put the fire out? Number two, when a fire truck goes to a house fire, what do they squirt on the fire to put the fire out? The answer to both of these questions is water, of course. And that's what happens when you use wet wood and try to burn it. It keeps putting the fire out. You can't maintain a proper internal temperature in your firebox with wet wood. So if you don't season your firewood, you are wasting time, effort, and money. Don't use a vapor fire furnace unless your wood is seasoned. How do I get seasoned firewood? Cut, split, pile, and cover the top of your wood at least 1 year in advance before you plan to use it. You're looking at an example of seasoned firewood. This fall, cut your wood into approximately 16-inch pieces in length for next fall's heating season. You can't cut your wood this summer for this fall. The harder the firewood is, the more dense it is, and the longer it takes to dry. Hardwoods like hickory, hard maple, oak, elm, etc. take longer to dry than birch or popple. Plan and be ahead if you are going to burn wood, and don't be lazy. Remember again, water doesn't burn. For efficient burns, you must have dry wood. It doesn't make a lot of sense to go through all the hard work involved in burning wood and end up with inefficient burns caused by wet wood. Season your firewood. Inside your owner's manual, you'll find a sheet that explains the automatic draft system of the Refire 200. On the back end of the stove will be your computer, which you'll be able to see from the front of your stove. And on the back of the stove, way in the back, underneath the blower, is the automatic damper that the computer actually controls. In the front end of the stove is a thermocouple that sends the signal to the computer so the computer can tell the air shutter system how far to open up the air for the automatic burn. What I want to do right now is I want to manually simulate how this control actually works. The first thing is this knob that's on the front of the computer sets the heat level for the house. If the weather is milder, you keep the computer turned lower, and as the weather gets colder, you set it higher. It automatically runs the fire for you. The first thing that you have to do to energize this computer is turn the on and off switch to on. You'll hear a short beep, which is your high temperature setting, then it shuts off, and then the green light will appear, just like it did right now. Now what I'll do is I'll manually heat the thermocouple up, and you'll be able to see the air shutter system actually work. As soon as it gets hot enough, the green light will turn off and the air shutter will open up. That's the wide open position when you first start the fire. Now as this gradually heats, the computer will modulate this air shutter to more air or less air automatically. Right now it's wide open. In a little while it will go to 2 lights, which will be about a ½ inch open, and then when it goes to 1 light, it's only about a ¼ inch open. When it satisfies your setting on the computer will actually shut this damper system down, and it'll go on pilot air, which are these 2 air openings on the front of the stove. We'll let it continue to heat. I'm going to turn the computer to low so it gets there faster. You can see right now that the computer is telling the air shutter to be at a ½ inch opening because 2 lights are on. As I continue to heat this thermocouple, it'll go to 1 light, which it did right now, and then once it satisfies your setting on the computer itself, it'll actually shut the air shutter like it did right now, and these 2 small holes here will be your pilot air, your pilot burn. Now as the fire cools, it automatically reverses, so first there'll be 1 light. If it satisfies it, it closes again. If it doesn't, it'll stay open. Now if it continues to cool, it'll go to 2 lights, which will be a ½ inch open again. Watch, you can see now it's 2 lights, a ½ inch open. And if it continues to cool and cool and cool, 3 lights will come on and it'll open wide open, trying to satisfy your setting. If it's not hot enough, it'll continue to stay wide open until all the coals and all the wood are burnt on your stove. One thing I forgot to tell you before was if the green light is on when you first start your computer, that means that you have to open your ash pan door to start a fire, because this will remain closed as long as the green light is on. Also on the front of the stove is this white sticker that shows the air inlets that are located right below the door on the front face of the stove. Those air inlets are where the air that comes from the back air shutter box goes into the front of the stove and burns the wood from the front to the back. The only air that goes to the wood, unless the ash pan door is held open when you have a coal stove and a green light, is above the bottom so that the wood will burn from the front to the back. Now I'm going to manually show you those air inlets on the front of the stove so that you can see where they're located. Those are the primary air inlets in the front that feed the wood in the front of the logs and get the logs burning. And then this is your intermediate air, which is located above the bottom, further above the bottom. Those are the air inlets that actually let the air to the wood to keep the wood burning and burn the wood from the front to the back. Now if you ever plug up those air inlets in the front by accidentally pulling your ashes or coals into those air inlets, it's very easy to clean. Once the stove is cooled off, you just take a shop vac and swish it across the front and suck those air inlets clean again. Alright, when you got your stove, inside the stove firebox are 2 rakes. This rake is for cleaning your ashes out. This side is for dragging your coals forward. This longer rake is for cleaning your heat exchanger. I will demonstrate when I go to the hot burn how you actually use this rake with the paddle on. It's very simple. On the front of the stove there's a decal that also says that the minimum load for any burn that you do should be 3 pieces of wood in a triangle shaped pile. This is what your pile should look like for a minimum load. It would be 2 on the bottom on top of your hot coals and 1 in between so that the wood gases will burn. Okay, on the front end of the stove is your front lift-off hood, and on that front lift-off hood are directions for starting the stove when it's cold and starting the stove when it's warm, when you have hot coals in the stove. Keep in mind now that the computer will be on green light, which means that the air shutter is not open and will not open until the computer senses heat. And the only way you can do this is by opening the ash pan door when you first start from a cold stove for a while until the 3 lights come on. Then the air shutter will automatically open up and you can start to burn the wood with the computer and then close the ash pan door. Now what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to open the ash pan door first, then I'm going to open the fire door and I'm going to clean out any ashes and coals that are over the grate in front of the stove. You start right in the front of your stove and go sideways back and forth across your grate. When you get to the end of the grate, you can take your rake out and pull any clinkers from the back end of the stove forward for the next burn. Now nothing is alive in the stove, it's all up, the fire is out, so we're going to have to put our newspaper and our kindling in the stove before we light the match and start the fire. We'll put the kindling on top. And now we'll put some pieces of wood on top of your kindling. And now it's ready to light a match. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to strike a match and I'm going to light the paper in front of the stove again so that the fire will start to burn, and I'm going to continue to leave the ash pan door open until the green light goes off and the 3 yellow lights appear. And most of the time what I'll do is I'll leave the ash pan door open even while the 3 lights are on to make sure that the wood is taken off. And then you can close the ash pan door and the computer will take over and burn the wood from the front to the back. And all you have to do is set the dial where you want it. Lower for warmer weather and higher for colder weather. Okay, once again, on the front of the stove, there's a sticker that describes the cold stove procedure and the warm stove procedure. If you have hot coals in the stove from the previous burn, the 3 lights will still be on the computer and the air shutter will still be open, so you do not have to open the ash pan door to refire the stove. What you have to do is open the door, the fire door for the stove, take the rake that came with the stove that has the bent down part and the straight part on the other end, and use this part that's bent down to clean the ashes out of the front. You start right in the front against the front of the stove and go back and forth so that you don't get any ashes into the air inlets. Then you turn the rake around and drag your hot coals forward to the front of the stove and then push them back away from the air inlets and then load your wood into the stove. And keep in mind that you never load less than 3 pieces of wood in there in a triangle shaped pile. Now when the weather is mild, you use only 3 pieces of wood probably at a time, and when the weather gets colder then you can fill the stove up more. In severe weather you'll be turning the stove computer up higher and you'll be filling the stove higher inside the firebox. The yearly maintenance at the end of the wood burning season for cleaning your heat exchanger and your pipes would be first push on the bottom of the front hood and lift it out away from the stove. That will expose the clean out cover and the thermocouple that sends back the impulse to the computer so that the computer knows how much air to add to the fire. Now at the end of the season you take this front clean out cover off. There's these 7/16 stainless steel bolts. Take them all loose and then the cover will come off the front of the stove. And then what you do is you take your long rake that you got with the stove and you go inside the heat exchanger and scrape around your pipes and around the inside of the stove, cleaning out the heat exchanger, and then you take a shop vac and vacuum this area out. Keep in mind that you have to clean this once a year so that you have good heat exchange, and that way you'll get the most heat from when you're burning the wood rather than having your carbon or whatever that collects up here insulating your heat exchanger. Also, as part of your yearly maintenance, you should take your stovepipe loose from the back of your stove. You should go in the back end of your heat exchanger and scrape with a putty knife around the tubes and the heat exchanger to clean any more carbon out that you couldn't get from the front clean out. And then use your shop vac in the back and vacuum that out also. Then you should take your pipes outside and scrape any kind of dust or anything else that's in the pipes and clean them out good for the following heating season. And then check your chimney. If you have any accumulation of creosote in your chimney, something is wrong somewhere. So you should check your owner's manual and your stickers on the front of the stove. And any further advice that you need or instructions, call the manufacturer. To maintain proper air tightness for both the main fire door and also the ash pan door, both the hinge and the latch and catch assembly are adjustable for both doors. You can see the hinge right here is adjustable, it's slotted, and the latch and catch is also slotted so that as you adjust it inward, it tightens up the door so that you'll have no air leakage. I want to show you how you adjust the main fire door for the vapor fire furnace. It's very simple. Just open up the door, take a 7/16 socket wrench and loosen up your 7/16 stainless steel bolts on the latch and catch, and because it's slotted you can adjust it inward as the rope shrinks or as it wears down in time. It would just adjust inward towards the furnace to maintain proper air tightness just by hitting it in, and then you retighten it up again once you set it and the door is tight again. On the back end of the furnace you'll notice this black box. This is your filter box, and it has a 14x20 filter on the back end of it. Your blower's on the inside, and once a year you should change this filter so that it doesn't block the airflow that the blower's pulling into the furnace, so you get proper air movement. And also what I do is periodically I vacuum it off to keep it nice and clean. Remember the important points about using your vapor fire furnace. First, use only dry seasoned firewood. Second, load and reload the stove according to the directions on the owner's manual and also the stickers that are located on the front of the stove. 3, use the rake provided to get the ashes out of the front end of the stove with your side to side back and forth motion, and then pull the coals forward for the next burn so that you do not plug up the air inlets on the front end of the stove. 4, set the dial on the computer for the level of burn that you desire. And 5, remember that the vapor fire furnace automatically gasifies the wood for you and is safe and efficient. Thank you.